Hi guys, it's Sabrina and I'm back again finally after more than 2 months. But yeah, I'm back now, so I have a lot of catching up to do. And yes, I have a different background because if you follow me on Twitter, then you would know that I recently moved out of my parents' house. Although I'm still staying in the same building that my parents live, but it's a different apartment. It's my parents' condo unit that I'm renting. This is also gonna be my new background now. It feels a little bit different for me, and I'm sure my videos are gonna look really different, but I'm really happy with the setup and it's much easier for me now because there's so much space. But anyway, so today I have so much catching up to do, but I decided to start with my reading wrap up for the second quarter of 2016. Okay, so bear with me because it's been a few months since I read these books already, and it's actually been a few months since I finished anything. So yeah, I apologize if my reviews on them aren't very accurate, but I'm gonna try my best, and here we go. So I read 10 things in the second quarter of 2016. One of them was a short story, one of them was non-fiction, and a bunch of them I listened to in audiobooks. First one is Uprooted by Naomi Novik, which I reviewed already in a separate video, and basically this is a young adult / adult standalone fantasy that's also a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and it's about basically this man who hides alone in a castle, and every 10 years he takes a woman with her to accompany him in that castle. And basically it's about this enchanted forest with a dark magic that's attempting to grow and infect everything and everyone around it, and it's the man's job to protect the villagers from the wood. And this book was very creepy, a lot creepier than I was expecting, and I thought that it was okay. It didn't stand out much to me, but it was enjoyable while I was reading it to an extent, and I really found this cover just so pretty. I guess that added to the pleasure of reading it because it's just so pretty, but it turned out to be a lot creepier than I thought it was gonna be, and yeah, it was okay. No, it wasn't my favorite, but it was okay. It was 3 stars. I gave it 3 stars. And then after that, I read Alley of Law and Shadows of Self, books 1 and 2 in the second Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. And if you didn't already know, Brandon Sanderson is like my favorite author ever, just like a lot of other people in BookTube. And the first Mistborn trilogy was a epic fantasy that is about allomancy, which is a magic system that's basically about manipulating different types of metals to do super cool action stuff. And then the second trilogy follows completely different characters because it's set 700 years in the future after the first trilogy, and it's futuristic with guns and cowboys, but still with the same magical elements. If the first trilogy was epic, the second one was more lighthearted and fun with the same cool magic system. I gave the first book 4 stars, but the second one, Shadows of Self, ended up blowing me away and I gave it 5 stars. And it was definitely my favorite book for the BookTube SFF Awards because a lot of the books that I read in the second quarter of 2016, I read for the BookTube SFF Awards. Anyway, moving on. And then after that, I read A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, which is an adult fantasy, but to me, it definitely read like a young adult fantasy, and this is about parallel Londons with different colors basically, and it's about this magician who has the rare ability to be able to jump between those Londons. Can't remember much of what happens anymore, but I remember really finding it enjoyable because of the atmosphere. I gave it 3 stars, but it's more of a 3.5. And then I read one of the books that turned out to be one of my favorites so far this year, which is Promise of Blood by Brian McLellan. This is book 1 in the Powder Maid trilogy, and this was recommended by a lot of people saying that it is a good book for people who are into Brandon Sanderson. One of the people who told me that was Catherine from Android's Conundrum, whose opinions I really trust when it comes to books. And Brandon Sanderson himself blurbed this book and said, just plain awesome. And it definitely was. This was also described as like a French Revolution with wizards, and that I think just sums it up pretty well because this is a flintlock fantasy with guns, and to me it's like a war book with magic. It's about this field marshal who overthrows the king one day and everything goes into chaos after that, and it has a lot of political intrigue. So much happens and it follows a lot of different characters who have different magical abilities that's too complicated to explain because it's very Sanderson-esque in the sense that the magic systems are so creative and they make the action in the books so addictive to read. And this book is more than 500 pages long, and it was packed. It was definitely a journey of a book, although there were parts towards the middle that really slowed down for me, and I almost only gave it 4 stars, but I really picked up and I ended up loving it by the end, and I gave it 5 stars still. And then I read The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, book 1 in, I forget what this, the Broken Earth series. This is a highly acclaimed work of fiction, which has won so many awards already, and it's definitely well deserved. And this book was so beautifully written that it got me to appreciate a book that I don't think I would appreciate otherwise, because this has a very sad and depressing, slow atmosphere. It's about this place where every few centuries a catastrophic climate change happens called the fifth season, and the lives of the people in this book basically revolves around trying to survive the fifth season. And it's about these people called origins who have the ability to manipulate elements of the earth and like control earthquakes, even like they can stop earthquakes or they can cause them. And these people are so powerful and so they can do so much, like they can pretty much control the earth, but they are despised and feared and at the same time treated very poorly and sometimes even killed because of what they're capable of doing if left to themselves. So yeah, they're very dangerous, very powerful people that are treated very, very poorly. And it follows the lives of 3 different origins who come from different backgrounds, and their lives sort of intertwine. It wasn't enjoyable all throughout, but the writing style was consistently sucked me in and definitely kept me going because I just needed to know what was going to happen. And then by the end, it just struck me as the kind of book that you just can't say anything bad about it. It's a book that you just can't not appreciate because it's so well written. Whether or not you're into this type of stuff, you're definitely gonna appreciate it, or you just can't say anything bad about it. So yeah, I give it 5 stars. What she thinks then and thereafter is, but he was free. And it is her bitter, weary self that answers this almost question every time her bewildered, shocked self manages to produce it. He wasn't, not really, but now he will be. But you need context. Let's try the ending, writ continentally. Here is a land. Blah 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 blah. I don't know, there's just something so cool about the writing style, and there's even parts of it that are written in second person. One of the most accomplished and exciting fantasy writers to arrive in the last few years, John Scalzi says. And this is a fantasy book, but it read a lot like a sci-fi dystopia to me. So yeah. The next one was another 5-star book, and it is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. Rainbow Rowell, if you didn't already know, is a famous young adult contemporary romance author who suddenly decided to write a fantasy book and pulled it off really, really well. This is a fake fan fiction turned into an actual novel based on the fan fiction written for the novel Fangirl, which is her YA romance. And what I can say is this: my sister was a huge fan of Harry Potter fan fiction before when she was a kid, and one of the things she used to tell me was that the gay fan fiction with Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy as a couple were some of the best ones because they were just so creative. Like, whether or not you're into that kind of stuff, you would like just appreciate those books according to her. I really loved how simplistic the writing style was more than anything. It was so cute, it was so clever, it was so Rainbow Rowell. And the spells were so cute because she uses like just normal everyday words. And I love how very Rainbow Rowell it is, because Rainbow Rowell is the kind of author that she would never do anything cheesy or risk like sounding too melodramatic or whatever. Instead, she would go the completely opposite direction and write something so overly simplistic that it becomes clever. She wrote it so easily. She probably didn't even have to think. She just, she just easily does her stuff and it always turns out really cute. So yeah, I gave it 5 stars. And then after that, I read another awesome book because of course it was also nominated for the BookTube SFF Awards, but it turned out to be a lot better than I expected it to be, and I already had pretty high expectations going into it, and it is Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and J. Kristoff. This is a young adult space opera science fiction, and it's basically about these 2 characters who were once a couple, but on the day of their breakup, something invades their planet and they end up on 2 separate ships, and then it's all about like how chaos ensues in those 2 ships, like an AI goes mad and like a deadly virus infects a lot of people in the other ship and stuff like that. So much happens in this book basically, and it's very action-packed and it really messes with your head, and it's such a journey of the book. And what's really cool about it is like it comes with these pictures and it's told through emails and like documents and stuff like that. So yeah, it reads really quickly. Actually not so much. It reads a little slower than a lot of YA books, but you could finish it in like 2 days. I finished it in a little over a day because it was just so engrossing and genuinely entertaining to read. Like if you're into dystopian books, if you're into like Brian and Sanderson stuff, I guess, or Divergent or something like that, you would definitely appreciate this. Also, even if you're into adult science fiction and just want to try something different, although it's not really very different. I'm one of those people that really loved it, and I definitely want to read the second book. It's such a journey of a book. It really messed with my head and it was like consistently addictive. 5 giant stars. And then after that, I read a short story, Midnight Hour by Mary Robinette Kowal, and this was a very sad book that I didn't like very much. I think I would give it like a 2.5 stars, but I don't really remember much about it. What I remember is that it's about a king and a queen whom, in exchange for a specific request, are cursed for a few years. And the curse for the king is that he's sane only for 1 hour every day, and then for the queen it's like she's nameless, or you're not allowed to mention her name, otherwise something bad would happen. I don't really remember much else, but I remember it being very sad, and it was just okay. The last book that I read was Who Moved by Cheese. This is a non-fiction book that my boss recommended to me as a motivational tool. It's basically about 2 mice and 2 humans who are trapped in a maze, and they are on a quest to find new cheese when one day their stack of cheese disappears. And this is like a metaphor for like change and how to deal with change and how to cope when put in difficult situations and stuff like that. It's a simple, really short book that really did its job, but there was nothing mind-blowing, nothing fantastic or whatever about it, but it definitely did its job, and I gave it 3 stars. So yeah, there you go. These are all the books that I read in the months of April, May, and June of 2016. Let me know what you think of them, if you've read any of them, or if you plan to read any of them soon. And I'll see you again next week, I promise. I'll be around more often. Hopefully, I'll have a book haul already by next week if my books from Book Depository arrive by then, because it's taking them so long to get here. So yeah, see you next week. I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a great week. Have a nice day. Thank you for watching.